I have a neck with the heel roughly carved, and as you can see here, the neck looks pretty much like a board. And in our second photograph, you can see that the neck is actually wider than the fingerboard, which has been glued to it. And that's really desirable because I'm going to use the fingerboard as a guide to show me how and just where to carve that neck. I've clamped the neck to the carving jig, and I'm going to use a rasp to create a bevel on each side of the neck. Each time I do something to the neck, I'm going to do it to one side, and then I'm going to do it to the other side in exactly the same way. After I've created these initial bevels on each side of the neck, I'm left with this ridge that you can see in this picture that shows the neck a little bit wider than the fingerboard. And that's going to be taken down with a rasp and files and then eventually a scraper in much the same fashion you saw in the previous picture. But this time I'm going to bring that down so that it's perfectly flush with the edge of the fingerboard. I have to take a lot of care when I do this because I don't want to dig into the edge of the fingerboard. This photo shows that those two bevels have been completed. What I'm trying to do here is create a series of facets on each side of the neck that will eventually just be easy to blend into the round shape of the neck. My next step is to carve a blend between the neck shaft itself and the headpiece. And this is an operation where I'll begin here, but I'm going to end up going back and forth between the headpiece and the neck shaft to work them one against the other and bring them into a nice blend. I use a small set of calipers to establish the thickness of the neck right at the first fret region. You can see in this picture the caliper is set just a little bit above the truss rod so that as I carve down into the neck, I know what thickness I need to arrive at so that I don't get it too thick or, worse yet, of course, too thin and carve right into the truss rod. I like to use a paring chisel to carve down to that neck thickness. And you'll see here that I'm just chipping away at the material to get there, but I'm not going down the length of the neck. I want to localize my work just to the first, second fret area. We want to preserve the flatness that's on the back of the neck, and I want to preserve the bevels that are on the side of it at this point. As I'm removing material from this area, I keep testing with this small caliper to determine when I've reached the thickness that I want, and here I've pretty much accomplished that. Just behind the caliper, you can barely see it, but I've carved an abrupt step downward from the back of the headpiece. Being that this is a traditional slotted style of headpiece, it's thicker than it would be on another instrument, and so we want to maintain that thickness down as far as we can and then blend abruptly into the next shaft. And now I'm working the next shaft again, and I'm carving what really is a tertiary set of bevels. I'm going to carve each side of that center dark strip that you see there, but I'm going to leave that dark strip perfectly straight and flat as it came off the planer, because that's going to tell me something about what to do next. But the blending process continues with this next set of bevels so that it's going to be very easy to round this over and just clean it up. Now as you view the neck in profile, you can see that the dish is there behind the headpiece, but the remainder of the neck, especially along that black line, you can see is very straight. What I need to do at this point is taper the neck in thickness from the low point that you see on the right to the high point that you see just in front of the heel on the left side of the photograph. So now I'm forming the taper with a rasp, and I have to remove more material at the headpiece end of the neck than I do at the heel end. This is a little tricky because I have to maintain a straight line from the headpiece back to the heel, and I still want to maintain a flat across the cross section of the neck. I use this gauge to determine the straightness of the taper that I've just formed, and once I'm satisfied that that's appropriate, I'm going to begin the process then of simply rounding the neck over and sensualizing it from one end to the other to get the shape and the feel that I need. And that's done with just more filing and rasping, and sometimes I use some scrapers with that. You can see in this picture that I've completed that task, and you can see the sudden step down from the headpiece to the neck shaft. We're pretty well there, but the neck is really very coarse right now. It's the right shape, but it just wouldn't feel good under your hand. It's very rough. So I'm going to take it off the carving jig completely, and I'm going to begin scraping at the neck. This way I can turn it, I can rotate it, I can reverse the direction of the neck, and I can refine it in any way that I want. And the added advantage in doing this is that I can constantly feel the neck. I always need to be very tactile at this point so that I can determine whether or not that neck is formed up just the way I want it to be. And I'll continue that scraping action until I'm satisfied that the neck has the right shape and the right feel. And along with that neck refinement, I have the neck mounted in another vise here, and I'm using needle files to improve and smooth out and even out that transition between the headpiece and the neck. I want to perfect that as much as I can. It really does a lot with respect to making the neck look nice and neat and making it look really good. And now the process of hand sanding. There is no machine sanding that can be done on these necks. It all has to be done by hand. Seems like the most tedious process in the whole operation, but it has to be done. I refine my necks all the way to 280 grit. So now we have a completed neck with a headpiece overlaid in black walnut and a mother of pearl inlay, the neck shaft of cherry, walnut, and maple, and a heel with a rosewood cap, and our shop foreman Annie in the background looking on. I think that's the look of approval. Thanks for watching.